Okay, so I want to make a quick video on the 7 biggest mistakes that most people make in sales, especially when they get in at the start. However, I've also seen so many different sales professionals make these same mistakes later on down the line. I'm just going to get straight into it. So, number one is answering people's questions for them. This is done usually at the fact find stage, and it's fucking mental, right? It's like if you ask a question, let them answer. I see it all the time. It's like, what's your favorite car? A Lamborghini. And they're either going to say no, which kills your rapport straight away. It's like, no, why do you think that? It doesn't make sense. Or they'll just go, yeah, sure. And then it's like they're not giving you the true answer. When you ask a question, you want to give them time to think. Let them breathe. Let them come up with their own answer, right? And then you can use that later on down the line. Don't just be throwing out the answers for them. It's like you ask a question, let them answer it. Okay, so number two is using buzzwords, especially at the wrong time. Now, myself, I tend not to use buzzwords. I hate when people are sitting there on a sales call and they're like, fantastic, brilliant, awesome. I mean, I hope nobody says awesome, right? But it's like, why would you use a buzzword? It's like, see if you're speaking to, a mate in the pub, you wouldn't say to them, oh, what you doing? How's your weekend been? Oh, brilliant, fantastic. It's like, it just doesn't make sense. Don't put that sort of language into a conversation in sales because it just sounds unnatural. And when it sounds unnatural, people tend to put their barrier up. They believe that they're getting sold to, which they are. You want it to be a natural conversation, make people feel at ease so you can get the true information out of them and truly just help them get to where they want to get to. So for number three, it's quite similar to number two, but it's a massive issue I see, and is using a sales voice, sounding too salesy. It's like they almost sound like a game show host. It's like they're sitting there and they're like, yes, oh yeah, and we'll get you that property, and that's absolutely. And it's like, you don't sound like that. Don't speak like that. It sounds so unnatural, and again, it just puts prospects off. So there's so many times in sales where you push people away from the sale as opposed to pushing them towards it, especially if you're dealing with hot inbound leads. They've already inquired, they already want the product. A lot of times what people do is they end up pushing them away as opposed to bringing them in. So don't use a sales voice. Just be natural. Just be yourself. People can smell when you're not being authentic from a million miles away. So the next thing's number four, and that's a lack of indifference. People that have commission breath. This is a huge killer in sales. So many people go onto the phones and they just sound so desperate. And it's like, I guess it's difficult to have that. You want to push them. You don't want to be too indifferent, because when you're too indifferent, then you're not going to get any sales. But you don't want to sound desperate. So there's that happy medium ground that you need to find in sales. But it's really important to be indifferent and sound indifferent when you're selling. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. And if it's of interest, let me know in the comments and I can break it down in another video. So another one that I see a lot is treating objections like they're an attack, right? So it's like, see, when someone has an objection, a lot of the time that's actually a buying signal, right? They're actually interested. If they weren't interested, they would just say, like, call me back later on. Whereas if someone asks a question, what about this? What about that? What about this? That's them interested. They're curious. They're actually going into the discussion. They're opening that conversation because they're interested in buying the product potentially, right? However, so many salespeople treat it like an attack, and they start getting really defensive and argumentative when they're dealing with objections, and they think it's some sort of a debate when it's not, right? You want to jump on their side. You want to help change their thinking. A lot of the ways that you can do this is you can explain to them, look, I can understand why you feel that way. That's also how I used to look at things. However, when I found out this, that's what changed it for me. That's how I looked at things differently, right? So it's like, you need to get on their level as opposed to just trying to, go have conflict with them, have conflict against them. It never works. It's a terrible way of trying to sell someone. Talking more than the prospect, right? When you talk and talk and talk, the more that you talk, the more that you're likely to fuck up. Not just that, right? But anything that you say in a statement, right? That could be asked as a question. If you make it as a statement, they can disagree with you. You can end up going down a bad path and you can end up fucking up. Whereas if you ask it as a question, you're then understanding, right? And it's also a good way of persuading someone into doing something. So instead of saying, this makes more sense than what you're currently doing already, say, do you not believe that this makes more sense than what you're currently doing already? And it makes it more difficult for them to say no. So this is the last one. It's like not understanding why you're asking your fact find questions. People just asking questions for the sake of asking questions. Whereas you want to understand what their motives are, what their desires are. what truly keeps them up at night, take them into the pain, into the hell, but also find out what the heaven is, right? Where are they going? What are they looking for? What's their desires, right? And it's really understanding the prospect and really understanding the question that you're asking. Don't just ask the questions for the sake of asking questions. Try and get an outcome from the questions you have. As you can probably see, I've not got a huge audience on YouTube. This is something I've just started and getting, trying to build the consistency in more. So if you want to give us a wee subscribe, maybe give us some comments of other videos if you do want to see them. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.